Pretty good.
Right?
Good morning.
Bob Bessie, nice to meet you.
Yeah, good morning.
How are things?
Good, good.
Beautiful day today.
You guys haven't met before, I take it.
I don't think we've ever met, Roy, have we? I know you met out in Bonds or one of the meetings.
Yeah, with the, one meeting in New Haven.
Yeah.
I've certainly seen you out in sight.
Yes.
You've been out on the side of it?
Oh, yeah.
You can stay up to date by following stories online at cbcnews.ca or listen to us right here at CBC Radio. I'm Martina Fitzgerald. This is CBC News.
About the old growth forest. I've saw through the media over the last few days and on radio that people are saying we're destroying the old growth forest. We have no intentions of destroying the old growth forest. I believe there are 6 trees within the corridor that would be of the hemlock stand, and that's all that we would be taking out of the old growth forest stand. And this is a great opportunity for government to protect some of these old growth forests through the EIA assessment. It has called for 5 parcels of land, and now that used to be in the private sector is now government owned and will be open to the public.
Roy, I know you've wanted to sit down with Minister Vesey. Here we are. What do you want to say to him?
Well, I wish this conversation had taken place 6 months ago. Then the protesters wouldn't probably be out there. And I think perhaps the minister might have listened to all of the concerns around this project. The issue of safety, if they're really concerned about improving highway safety, they should conduct a campaign around public education. The major reason their highways are unsafe is operator error, not highway construction and not the nature of the roads. If they really wanted to use the money, the taxpayers' money efficiently, they should. That's where they should have focused.
Quick reply from you, Minister Vesey, before we get to the phone calls.
Safety is the mandate of our department, and we have professional engineers that's what they do for a living, and I have great respect for the staff in the department. And when we identify areas on our highways that needs improvement, it's our due diligence is the Department of Transportation to address those issues.
Let's get to the calls. Dr. Paul Price in Meadowbank, our first caller this morning. Good morning, Dr. Price.
Well, yes, and thanks you guys for holding the pen or the cattle prod to begin what really is the first PEI marathon of the weekend.
Did you agree with Plan B?
No, my objection to Plan B has to do with safety, highway engineering, conservation, as well as key issues of governance. And all of these have already been referred to by your guests, but I'd like, as a medical doctor practicing here, like your speakers, to concentrate on safety. Now, if you go online to Transport Canada at tc.gc.ca, you'll support Roy's argument that fatalities and personal injuries, while having declined in Canada, have left Prince Edward Island actually with the 4th highest fatality and personal injury rate in the country, behind Yukon Territories, Saskatchewan, and the Northwest Territories. Now, Minister Vesey has stated that this realignment at the Bonshaw Trans-Canada Highway is being done because it's the worst segment of the road and that it will address this issue. But these statistics, along with local RCMP statistics, clearly show that impaired and unseatbelted drivers are responsible for the majority. So please comment on this, as well as Transport Canada's efforts to introduce electronic stability control.
We'll bring in Minister Vesey.
I'm sorry?
We'll hear from Minister Vesey on that.
Yes, the stats on the highway that we look at are provided from the Highway Safety Division that get their stats from the RCMP. And anytime you see a stat like we see on the Trans-Canada between the Upton Road and the Confederation Bridge that 50% more accidents happen in this section of highway. That's a stat that jumps out at me, and it's the department's job to address those issues.
Roy?
Well, first of all, the statistics that the province is using and are still using are erroneous. The comparison between sections of the highway have already been shown that they've added a couple of kilometers on each end of the section they're comparing, so that they're not doing an accurate comparison. And the most dangerous area of that highway turns out to be the Tryon area before Bonshaw. But the issue of safety on the highway, again, as the doctor has mentioned in his call-in, the operator error, driver error, is by far the most significant factor. And the highway construction is a relatively minor area. Now, one of my friends was killed in that area. Two of the people that died in the last 10 years. And that's tragic. But to listen to our MLA Valerie Dockery to suggest that we should spend $20 million to save lives, it to me is just foolish, because we can spend that money much more effectively saving lives in other areas and doing the education program around driver error.
Our next caller is Jackie McKay in Lower Montague. Good morning.
Good morning.
What are your thoughts on Plan B?
Well, I believe it's time that Islanders stood up and let the progress of our island. And the safety of the children are at stake through all those areas. And it would be a small price to pay for 5 hemlock trees if we did have an accident. I think they should let the construction workers continue on with the job. And secondly, we have a great island here, and we should let the government off the day. Instead of discouraging them, we should encourage them to do a better job for all of us.
And Jackie, what do you think of the protests we've seen over the last week?
Well, I'm not really for that. I think it's, in my words, it's a bit petty. I think they should let progress.
Okay, Jackie, thanks for your call. Jackie McKay in Lower Montague. Roy, speaking for the protesters this morning?
Well, I mean, we do have a beautiful island here, and I think everyone would agree we want to keep it. Now, the minister has referred to the hemlock area. A forest is not just a few trees. A forest is a community of trees, animals, wildlife. You can't just go in there and basically decimate a section of it and then somehow think the community still is going to be living. It's like striking a blow to the heart of the forest and then saying, well, you're still going to survive. To me, it's myopic, and
we're going to go to our next caller in just a moment. Minister Vesey, what did you want to say?
I just wanted to say we're talking about the protection of the forest, and we all don't want to see any more destruction to the environment than is necessary. And this is a great opportunity, as I said earlier, for the province now owns the lands that were in the private ownership. We can protect these lands. It's a great opportunity. We've met with groups that are excited about the opportunities out there after this project is done. And, Prince Edward Island is no different than any other province in the country. We're always working on a road infrastructure, which is a very important piece of our economy.
But Minister Vesey, why is the Island Nature Trust, the West River Watershed Group, opposed to this project then? If you're willing to work with groups, they have very clearly stated there are so many concerns and environmental destruction and damage with this project. They're not supporting it. So are you not listening to them?
This project has went through 2 environmental assessments, as we all know, provincial and federal, and environmental issues are in the forefront of our mind every day on the work site. We look forward to having more discussions with the groups Roy just mentioned here on how we proceed after the project to have public be able to engage in these lands that are near and dear to the hearts of some of the protesters, the old-growth hemlock, and it's a great opportunity.
But the damage will be done. The mitigation isn't going to be inadequate, and the compensation is inadequate.
Elizabeth Scholes, our next caller from Charlottetown. Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning.
Do you agree with Plan B?
I certainly don't, and I'd like to, first of all, thank Roy very much and everybody else who's at the site. I think they're doing a wonderful job, and I think it's very important what they're doing. This is not just about trees. It's not just about a highway. It's about standing up to a way of governing in this province that is dysfunctional, and I think it's very important what they're doing.
And what would you like to ask Mr. Vesey this morning?
Well, given that they are still trying to convince us that this is all about safety, I'd like to ask him about a couple of things that don't really seem to make sense to me in his reasoning in putting forth the safety argument. Last July, his staff, Steve Yeo and Kim Herelt, told the Standing Committee on Fisheries, Transportation and Rural Development that they had selected this area, Churchill, New Haven, not necessarily because it was the most dangerous, but because it was, I think in Steve Yeo's words, the area that was going to give them the best bang for their buck. And when Kim Herelt was asked if they considered any other areas besides the Charlottetown Borden route in applying for the Atlantic Gateway money, which does seem to be the driver for this whole thing, she informed the committee that they didn't actually consider anywhere else in the province. Would that be correct?
Minister Vesey.
I'll say that the Atlantic Gateway is for a main trade corridor, which has been identified between Charlottetown and the Confederation Bridge, and that's what was used to get the funds from the federal government.
But when we say that money was a driving force here, was money a driving force?
Safety is a driving force in this. In our department, again, the mandate is safe roads for the traveling public. And I'm not an engineer, Matt, nor any of us, except for Steve around the table, and I respect the advice of our engineers in the province. We're very fortunate to have the quality of engineers that we do have, and we take their advice as government, and it doesn't, whatever party's in power will be getting great advice from these engineers, and that's what we base our opinion on. And again, it's safe roads for the traveling public.
When we see big ads in the newspaper and we see security and snow fencing have to go up, and work being delayed, has the cost of this project increased over the last week?
Well, the cost of the project is things go forward. It gets held up. Of course, there's a cost to the project, and the contractor thought it was great or a good idea to have security there, which we do. It's safety on the work site, and we put a perimeter out there to identify the work area, and we just asked the protesters that they would abide by safe work area. Let these workers work. These gentlemen that run these machines aren't used to the conditions of having people around these big pieces of equipment. The sight lines are very minimal, and we don't want to see anyone get hurt in this project as we go forward.
I'd like to comment a little bit on safety. When we first went to the worksite area, there was no signage on the road indicating that the construction was going to take place. There was no flag people. There was no trespassing. There was no safety fences. They were stopping their trucks on the highway, on the Trans-Canada, at 7 in the morning, unloading heavy machinery. There was almost several accidents right in that area. So safety was not their priority concern, and as well, we were told by the RCMP if we were on the site and we were legally on the site there, he said we would be asked to leave by the RCMP. The operators would stop their machines and the RCMP would ask us to leave.
Minister Vesey, did you anticipate the level of these protests? Your department?
I thought all along there could be a protest, and there's a small number of protesters out on site the last few days, and we have to work through that. The contractor's aware of it, and we do our best to inform the protesters on jobs that are going on within the work site. But again, we would ask them to obey the work site area, so there's no chance of injury to anyone on the work site.
There may be a small number of protesters on the work site relative, but we've been standing on the road. We have signage on the road. over 60 or 70% of the cars that drive by have honked their support. Even the truck drivers that go by were getting easily 50 to 60%, maybe more. So there's no question there is a majority of Islanders opposed to this project.
Our phone lines are full. We want to keep moving through the calls. Karen George of North Rustico, go ahead.
I just want to read this so I get it right. I believe this project is going forward because the federal government gave the money for infrastructure projects. So just to get that money, this project was conceived. It is, if it doesn't proceed, you probably won't get that money. Can we not use the money for a walk, a bike path? Wouldn't that be more safe? Can't we, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit emotional. Can't we get, bike and walking paths beside the highway? That would make our children safe. That would make our bikers safe. That would take them off the roads and make our cars safer. How much safer would that be? We would also encourage active lifestyles and a whole new kind of tourism. Please be reasonable. I think you're wasting the money.
Karen George in North Rustico. Minister Vesey, when you hear someone with that level of emotion about this project that you greenlit, what's your reaction?
Well, my reaction is the Department of Transportation, we're responsible for roads in our province, and we've spent $100 million on Highway 2 over the last 10 years, both our government and the Binns government, and we're now shifting our focus on highways out to the Trans-Canada, which we've had an independent engineer look at through the Atlantic Gateway and have identified 3 areas that are, stand out. And anytime that you have federal funds available, whether it be for health care, for education, or for farm subsidies, due diligence of government is to use those.
But are you saying money was then a consideration?
No, we are focusing now on the Trans-Canada Highway in our department as we go forward, and we've there's other areas out there. There's Croppo and Tryon that we've identified and will continue to work for, and along with the highway safety, this is going to create 200 jobs out in the project, which is much needed here in the province. And I believe the TD had said it gets us 2% economic growth in our province over the next couple of years, and they pointed out to this project. So this is why we're going forward.
This is Island Morning on CBC Radio 1, 96.1 FM. It is our phone-in, and our phone lines are busy right now. 629-6461 is the number to call. Be patient. We have a half hour left, and our next caller is Nancy Price in Charlottetown. Good morning, Nancy.
Good morning.
Do you agree with Plan B?
I am strongly opposed to Plan B.
Why?
Well, for many reasons. The environmental reasons are the strongest, and I know there's been environmental assessment, but they are not taking into account the things that are going to happen anyway. There's a lot going to happen to the streams. A lot's going to happen that cannot be replaced. And when you cut down, I agree with Roy, when you cut down part of the forest, it's gone forever. It's not going to come back. But my big reason now has morphed from those underlying reasons to being extremely disappointed in our government for failing to listen to the electorate. We elect them. They work for us. I would like them to be listening to us. I wish we had had an honest discussion months ago. Roy pointed out the people on the road. I'm 81 years old, and I'm one of the people who stood by the side of the road holding up signs. Many, at least 3 to 1 by actual count, honking in support of us. There was a plebiscite. Over 5,000 Islanders voted online, and over 90% of them were opposed to this project. There was an absolutely wonderful opportunity then to begin an honest discussion. It didn't happen. I am extremely disappointed. I know there are only a few people on the ground, but these figures show that there are a great many more Islanders who are opposed to the plan, and I wish our government would listen. And then if there'd be an honest discussion, as Roy has indicated, maybe we wouldn't be on the ground if there had been an honest discussion and we really saw a reason.
Minister
there are
Vesey,
not sufficient reasons for going ahead with this highway.
Well, Minister Vesey is here this morning, but accountability has been a recurring theme. We heard it last time in the phone-in that you weren't able to attend. How do you respond to that, accountability?
We had, I believe, 8 public meetings on this project, and, the first plan that came out, we listened to the people. I believe the former leader of the Green Party, some members of the opposition, even commented on, thank you for listening to the people. The area in question that we're talking about through Churchill is approximately 6 kilometres or thereabouts, and there's 2 sides to the road. There's the side of Strathgartney Park, which we, from an engineering and safety standpoint, would be the most economical route to go. We understood the public did not want that. And through the public meetings and through the submissions that we've got through our website, we went back and we came up with the current alignment that we have proposed. And that's the other side of the road. So that's the alignment, and that's where we're proceeding.
But I have a question to the minister. Why, when they proposed a 3-kilometre rerouting of the highway, did they expect the public to embrace a 6-kilometre highway reconstruction? They've already told them they don't want a 3-kilometre construction through Strathgartney and through the woods, the Acadian forest in that area. Why would the minister think that the public's going to want a 6-kilometre highway construction? And then they never had a single public consultation meeting after that point. So they changed their plan, and then they just tried to bulldoze it through.
We, again, in the department have professional engineers such as Mr. Yo here in the studio, and I kind of take exception to the comments by Roy to say that we're bulldozing or we're not. We're taking advice of professional engineers.
But do you think you did everything you could to hear from the public on this?
Yes, we've had our public meetings, and as government we make decisions, and we're addressing a highway that was built in 1952 when we had potato boats, we had rail lines, we had very minimal amount of tourists using those roads, and now it's tenfold above of what it used to be. And when we can access funds from our federal government, and as Steve had alluded to earlier here, we're bringing today the road up to today's standard, and we're no different than any other area in the country that are working on their Trans-Canada highways or improving the road infrastructure. And I was at an infrastructure summit meeting in Regina a month ago, and 61% of our road infrastructure in this country are in need of repair, and PEI is no different.
I think the minister's avoiding the question that the caller put in. Why didn't they consult? They didn't consult on Plan B. I was at the meeting. He said this is a done deal. The minister said this is a done deal. How is that consultation?
I believe at the meeting I said environmental assessment would be the end, would be the result of the project.
But that's not public consultation.
We had 8 meetings, and, there's only 2 sides.
You had 8 meetings on Plan B?
We had 8 meetings on the project of the realignment, and as I said earlier, there is 2 sides to
and
the
not
road.
A single meeting on Plan B.
It's 23 minutes before 8 o'clock. We have Transportation Minister Robert Vesey with us in the studio. We have the province's Chief Engineer, Stephen Yo, and Roy Johnston, who's been one of the vocal protesters over the last week, but over the last several months on the Plan B project. We have full phone lines, and our next caller is Rita Jackson in North Milton. Good morning, Rita.
Good morning.
Do you agree with Plan B?
Absolutely not, and I have a number of reasons.
Okay, go through them quickly, because we want to get to all these callers.
Mr. Vesey announced at the meeting in Bonshaw that it was a done deal. It wasn't a consultation, we were told. Now, he's saying that it's a safety issue. I've looked up the statistics that I can find from Transport Canada because the province won't release all of the statistics. If safety was such an issue, why was so much spent on Route 2 in the last 10 years? Another thing is that this is an enormous waste of money. Now, Mr. Vesey seems to be fixated on these 50-cent dollars, but they're not 50-cent dollars. They're coming out of your pocket and my pocket and every other taxpayer in Canada for the $8 million that we're getting from the federal government. But according to Transport Canada, one of the best ways to reduce accidents is education, seatbelt use, and slowing down the traffic. Why did the Minister of Transportation have the speed limit increased in Bonshaw rather than lowered?
Minister
now,
Vesey,
all of these things...
We want to hear from the minister here, Rita, so we'll bring in Robert Vesey.
As far as the speed zone increased in that community, I'll have to pass that one over to the engineer because he would be responsible in that section.
Certainly the area in Bonshaw, it was posted at 60 kilometers an hour. We've done traffic studies through there, and the average speeds were 84 kilometers an hour. Now, again, when you have post to reduce speed, there's a potential for conflict because of speed differentials. So we try to post an area so there's less conflict. And again, after we did increase the speed to 80, we took speed studies again, and it did not increase the speed more than 1 kilometer an hour through the community.
But Minister Vesey, would lower speed limits, would education, would these things help and not a $20 million project?
Again, the department's mandate is we work on roads. We improve roads in our department.
But if this has been a safety issue, why have we heard so much about this over the last few months and not over the past few years, if this is such a dangerous stretch of highway?
Well, this highway is where we've spent $100 million in Highway 2, and now we are addressing issues on our Trans-Canada Highway, and we'll continue to do that. And, safety concerns are in the foremost of all of us every day we travel on our roads, and our department is trying to bring roads up to today's standards.
Roy, you travel on those roads a lot?
I do, and I don't understand why the government is not judiciously using the taxpayers' funds to focus on the real issue of safety, which is driver operation, drivers driving too fast, as Stephen Yeo has pointed out. The drivers are going through that area too fast. So what do? Instead of, maybe even having signs there that say you're going too fast, driver education, other programs, what do? They post a higher speed limit, Okay, the drivers themselves may be a little more safer, but what about the people in the community of Bonshaw, the kids playing in the community, the school bus that has to stop and unload kids there, the dogs and pets that people have in that community? The traffic now is all going faster. Instead of really addressing the issue of safety, they've gone a counter to that.
Our next caller is Adam Baldwin in Kincora. Good morning, Adam.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Do you agree with Plan B?
I do so.
Why?
For multiple reasons. It's time to put some stuff in perspective with regards to the Plan B highway project, in my opinion. Every night I watch Compass and always hear negatives on this project. With all due respect to the environment, which is important to everyone, there's another side of this which I feel isn't being published fair enough. I am an emergency room registered nurse, as well a fire chief of a rural fire department, and dealing with tragedy is no stranger to myself. I was also a professional driver, a truck driver for 10 years prior to going into nursing. You can educate the public as much as you want. Accidents are still going to happen. If the government of today can prevent another tragic loss of life by improving our highway system, my hat goes off to them. And they most certainly have the public safety at heart. I also applaud the concern of the environmental protesters, which we most certainly have to protect our province for the future.
Adam, do you feel that's a dangerous stretch of highway as it is right now?
I do so. There has been a lot of accidents already. And I mean, if we can prevent the loss of one life, that's the main goal. My personal belief is the protesting is going a bit far. The prevention of one life, loss of life, outweighs the loss of the part of a forest.
Roy, how do we want to bring in Roy Johnston, the idea of saving lives by repairing this road?
Well, that's an emotional issue, and I agree. I mean, the loss of any life is tragic. I mean, I lost a friend, and she was killed in that section of the highway. But I still think that we want to ensure that how the money is spent is really going to address the issue of safety. And, the doctor has pointed out, the studies point out, the major reason for highway accidents is operator error. As well, my friend was killed in that area of the highway in a winter freezing rainstorm. Why wasn't there salt on the road? Why wasn't there sanding? Why wasn't there some kind of indication, maybe even signage on the road that indicates, okay, extreme weather conditions right now, slow down?
But do you think a road with fewer twists and turns would have made a difference here, Roy?
I don't think so, no. I think if the semi-trailer truck driver had have been driving perhaps a bit slower, and I don't know the specific circumstances. Sure. And again, the province doesn't seem to want to release the actual accident statistics around the accidents along the highway. So we can't really see what all the causes were. But I still think there are other ways, better, effective ways to spend the public money
Minister
to ensure
Vesey.
safety.
I guess in a perfect world we wouldn't have impaired driving, and everybody would obey the speed zones, and everybody would drive, reasonably responsible. But unfortunately, we don't. And again, when we look at the statistics on that highway from Charlottetown or from the Upton Road to the Confederation Bridge, and we see in that area of Churchill that there are 50% more accidents. That's a red flag.
Yeah, but okay. 50% more accidents in that area is not accurate. The Tryon area was the highest area for accidents. Why didn't they work there first if that was their concern?
Minister Vesey.
Again, we look at the stats and we see that there is a very high accident rate in that area, and we're doing our due diligence by repairing that area.
But as Pat Martell reported, those stats brought in areas outside of the Plan B realignment.
I'm not going to argue the stats with your Pat Martell or Roy here. We get our stats from the Highway Safety Division, and they get their stats from the RCMP.
But Stephen admitted as such, right, Stephen? It was outside that area.
You might want to comment a little further on that.
I'll speak to that. The stats you're talking about, certainly we looked at the New Haven, Bonshaw, and we included the stats outside the influence of the intersection, which is 100 or 200 meters. Now, that area is really the construction zone. So, yes, we've included those stats.
And that brought the number up?
Minimally, yes. We also, as Roy refers to, the area in Tryon, I think it's really the area in Disable that Pat Martell and I discussed before. That has a high accident rate. It's a 1 kilometer section between the Disabled Bridge and Route 19.
And why isn't that being worked on right now?
That is being designed, and that's going to be a tender in early spring this year, and that will be completed next year.
It's 14 minutes before 8 o'clock, and we still have full phone lines. We'll get through as many calls as we can. Keep trying at 629-6461. Josey Baker in Charlottetown, do you agree with Plan B?
No, I don't.
Why?
Well, I've seen over the past year, since the initial Atlantic Gateway projects were proposed, there's been an incredible amount of public opposition, mobilization, a lot of different ways to try to get the word to our elected officials that this is not something that we as islanders are okay with. But there has really been a mockery of democracy that's happened in this situation. There's been a mockery of consultation, public consultation. All of the consultation processes were more like information sessions than consultation. And I just wanted to say that the fact that it's come to this, that we actually have people protesting, and we haven't seen anything like this in Prince Edward Island in decades. That's all on this government. And I just want to know, is it the intention of this government to demonstrate to islanders that we really have no voice in the way that this province is governed right now? And as for the jobs, the 200 jobs, how much has been spent so far on the propaganda campaign that's followed up? I know that there was a lot of cuts this year to nonprofit organizations, voluntary sector, community organizations that provide vital services, so much more valuable than the dollars that go into them, which isn't even that much. And in place, we see a lot of money being spent on an expensive ad campaign. So I just want to speak both to the violation of democracy that I've witnessed in this province over the past year, and also the fact that 200 jobs for $20 million. We could make a lot more jobs for $20 million and not have so much destruction and so much harm to the state of our province.
Minister Vesey, is this the best place for government to place its money?
Well, again, we've been elected by people to make decisions, and I understand as a politician that sometimes decisions aren't popular with everyone, but we in the Department of Transportation have a job to do, and that's to invest and to make our highways safe for the traveling public. And with a budget, a capital budget of $38 million a year to invest in our roads and our bridges, we're going to use $3 million this year for the project and $5 million next year to look after our Trans-Canada Highway, which is our main shipping corridor for safety.
Do you feel the protesters have gone too far over the last week?
The protesters have every right to protest, and we understand and respect that. It's Roy had alluded to earlier, safety, and safety is a concern. I just see people on the side of our Trans-Canada Highway holding signs, a small group the other day, and to me, that's not a very safe place to be protesting, and I just wish that the protesters would use the safe areas that we have for safety reasons for them out on the work site.
Every one of those people is a voter. What kind of political price do you think you're going to pay for this decision?
I've been asked that different times, and as Minister of the Department, and I see our engineers and what the Department, how it works in safety on our roads. I believe in this project passionately, and some of the opposition parties have put politics ahead of public safety to me, and I'm appalled at that. And if there's a political price to pay for public safety, I can live with that, man.
Sue Williams is our next caller from St. Catharines. Sue, do you agree with Plan B?
No, I don't, Matt. I'd just like to preface my question by saying that in 1996, my husband and 3 children, myself, were in a head-on collision on the Trans-Canada Highway in Clyde River. So on that little chart, we're one of those statistics. And we live with the results of this accident every day. So highway safety is pretty high on my list of priorities. The government tells us over and over that this highway realignment is necessary for the safety of the traveling public, but refuses to release the full statistics, the exact location of the accidents, the road conditions, the time of year, were there charges in relation to the accidents. And at the public meetings I've attended, I've asked the engineers several times when these stats will be released, and they always reply that, in 4 or 5 months' time. So my question for the minister is, why won't the department release the full statistics? Either you have them, and they don't support the theory that this stretch of highway is dangerous, or you don't have them, and if that's the case, the decision has been made based on incomplete information.
Steve, would you like to address that?
Yes, the stats, or the accident stats and causes, Kim Peralta and myself appeared before one of the standing committees, and that was a request to provide information for all of Trans-Canada. The information for the New Haven-Bonshaw area has just been sent over to the standing committee for review, and we're working certainly on providing the additional information for all of Trans-Canada. Certainly, when you look at causes, certainly there's 4 main causes, and some of it was alluded here earlier about drinking and driving, driving too fast for road conditions, driver inattention, and mechanical breakdowns. And when you look across our roads and across Canada, the same causes happen all the time. And when you have highways that are designed below the standards of the day, certainly people don't have time to react if there is an event happens, and that's why there's more cause or more accidents within areas that have sharp curves.
But behind every one of those stats is a person, and we're hearing from Sue Williams, who was one of those accident victims, saying she opposes this project. What does that say to you, Minister Vesey?
Well, I respect her opinion, and again, I'm not an engineer, and in the department we have professional engineers that work on our highway system every day. That's their livelihood, and I respect their decisions. And when we have an area highway such as our Trans-Canada that was built in 1952 and is well below the standards of today, I take their advice. And one thing we didn't talk about here this morning too, there was a lot of chat on maybe just put up some banks on the current curves or cut some trees for sightline distances, and when we go into the road
rumble
bed,
strips, lower speed limits, there's been a bunch of different ideas.
When we as a department go into a road bed and dig in, then we have to bring it up to today's national standards, and or you don't have engineer sign off on the project, professional engineers such as we have here, and we're out on our Trans-Canada, our main highway to our trade corridor that we will be addressing over the next.
Just 6 minutes left. George Kelly in Blooming Point. Do you agree with Plan B?
No, I don't agree with Plan B, and it is a shame that we have to spend all this time and all this money realigning a highway for whose gain. I look at the fact that the truckers and PEI and the construction companies are gaining by this, and they're keeping quiet because they're benefiting by the whole thing. But the trucking industry is not slowed down immeasurably by the highway the way it exists now. And to overemphasize safety, I think it's a red herring. All you have to do is travel on the 401 in Ontario from Cornwall to Kingston or from Mississauga to Kitchener-Waterloo, and you'll see trucks on the road by the hundreds. There are not many trucks on the road here, maybe 600 and some a day, but it should not be considered a major issue that we have to spend $20 million. There are many environmental concerns that I have as well that have been raised by other callers this morning. But I'm really concerned about the cost to taxpayers, the lack of significant benefits, and the availability of clear alternatives. So I don't think this realignment should go ahead, and I think you really should listen to the grassroots and not just the experts who are trained to look to do roads. That's their job. So in a democratic society, listening to the people is number one in my books.
All right, Mr. Kelly.
And I don't feel Minister Vesey is listening.
George Kelly in Blooming Point. Our next caller is Richard Racewell in Charlottetown. Richard, do you agree with Plan B?
No, I think it's a huge waste of money. And I think it's also worth pointing out that at this point it's pretty pathetic that we're finally having the debate over this project after the tree harvesting's already begun, after work has already begun. If we had had this debate properly back in March, the government would not be in the position it is in today. However, I would like to touch on the safety argument. I mean, the Minister talks about safety all the time, but in order to assess the safety argument, we do need to know the causes of the argument, of the accidents, because if driver error is the cause, rerouting the road will make no difference whatsoever. In fact, it could make it worse because drunk drivers will be overconfident and be moving far too fast. So I'd like to ask, were the causes of accidents ever considered in the statistics? And why is the government still refusing to make this information public, even after the Standing Committee on Transportation mandated that the government release this information?
All right, Minister Vesey. We only have time for final words from each of you here, so we'll bring in Minister Vesey right now.
For a final?
Well, address that, the causes of the accidents. Why don't we know that?
Again, the stats that we see on that section of highway is 50% higher. So to me, that is an issue. Whether it's a drunk driver error, it's in that section of highway that the stats show me that there's 50% more accidents under Trans-Canada, and the department, through our engineers, are addressing what they see is an area that's been identified by an independent engineer that is in need of repair on our main corridor in Prince Edward Island.
Roy?
So the minister didn't really answer the caller's question about the actual reasons for the accidents in the area. But I want to say to Islanders that it's not too late to stop this project. And I want to invite them to come out to the area, particularly the old growth Hemlock area. This is a really unique area. In fact, Parks Canada, when they were looking at all across the province for areas to make a national park, the Bonshaw Hills and the West River area were a significant runner in that competition. And it's a unique area. It's a beautiful area, and I invite the public to come out and support us, and even just to come out and bring their family and go for a walk in the woods.
And we've had land expropriated in that area as well. What was it like for you to sign those expropriation papers, Minister Vesey?
Government doesn't take expropriation lightly, and we've dealt with a lot, I believe 30-plus landowners, and dealt in good faith with them, and there was a few landowners at the very end, not homeowners, but landowners, and we continue to negotiate through with these landowners to try to come to agreement when the expropriation order has been acted. And I'd just like to comment on Roy's comment there, and it's a great opportunity now that this land is in the hands of the public, and opportunity to preserve the old growth stand. Before they were in private land, and we didn't have that. It's open to our public. They will be able to tour these lands, biking, hiking trails, and this is.
But you're going to destroy that area and then invite the public. Island Nature Trust has said they're opposed. West River Watershed Group is opposed. The community there is opposed to this.
We have to end things there. Our toll-free talkback line, 1-800-680-1898. Our thanks to Roy Johnston, to Minister Robert Vesey, and to Chief Engineer Stephen Yeo for joining us here in the Island Morning Studio. This is 96.1 FM, and the news is next with World Report at 8 o'clock.